All right, here we go. Welcome. Travis Lofka here, the Human Upgrade Project. And before we get into tonight's episode, so that I can try to get a few words out and speak in a semi-coherent fashion for you, as always, it's time for Random². Bizarre odd national holidays in the U.S. Today's are a little, actually this is for June 25th, tomorrow. Not super exciting, but delicious. So tomorrow, this one's not delicious, although it could kind of be. Tomorrow's Log Cabin Day. And there's log cabin syrup, which is really not syrup. It's mostly just corn syrup dyed brown, which is really disappointing after you've had the real syrup, because once you have real maple syrup, oh, wow, right? If you've never had it, do have it or don't. It just depends, because once you have it, you never go back, right? Also tomorrow, where are we at? A minute and a half. Also tomorrow is National Catfish Day. This is the delicious part, right? The really weird thing about this one, though, is that this national holiday has only been around since 1987. I did look this one up because I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And yeah, 1987, President Ronald Reagan instituted this national holiday. I didn't read specifically why. Maybe he just really liked catfish. I don't know. I personally really like catfish, so there's the deal. I probably should have prefaced this video, this live, with the fact that you could forward to about 3-minute mark, because that's about how long it takes me to go through the odd national holidays for Random² before I get into anything of substance. And with that said, why don't we just jump right in here? This one's going to be kind of quick tonight. So once again, Travis Lofka here with the Human Upgrade Project, where I dissect and deconstruct what makes people remarkable and extraordinary so that we can figure out how to implement those things and duplicate those things and replicate those things in our own lives, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to become even more remarkable and extraordinary than we already are. And in tonight's episode number 25, a few simple things that I do to stay healthy, mentally and physically. Because actually it's probably 80 or 90% mental in anything, and the rest is physical. And if you've seen any of my previous episodes, you probably understand that by now, but if you don't, you will. Just keep watching. So the biggest thing I do, okay, here, let me back up a little bit. What made me think about this was I was talking with some friends the other day, and their parents came to the United States from Mexico and started a business and did all this stuff. And it reminded me of a fan just fell over. Oh, I hope it doesn't start a fire or something, because I'm doing a live. Hold off on the fire over there. I'll be done in just a little bit. So, so it reminded me of the fact that I know I have friends that have come to the States without knowing English, and have done amazing things. And the resources and the things that we have here, a lot of times people take for granted, I take for granted, and all of that. And that in turn reminded me of when I lived in Mongolia, and what the limited resources that they had over there, and what I had to become accustomed to and learn to deal with. And this is where the mental aspect of things come in, because over there, you didn't get everything right when you wanted it. There was no time schedule usually. If you decided to go, I went out to the countryside a lot. I lived in the Gobi Desert doing small business development, and we would go out. So we would many times we would be supposed to leave at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and if we left by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that was a good day, right? And you didn't have water all the time, you didn't have heat all the time, you didn't have a lot of the things that we have here, electricity, all of those good things. And that's where I really, really started to learn about being grateful for things that we have, or things that are in, if you live in the United States, or you pretty much live anywhere except for a third world country, there are things that we have access to that others don't, that we take for granted a lot of times. So one thing I do for my mental health, I've mentioned this in a previous episode, more often than not, I mean, I miss a day here and there, but more often than not, every night before bed, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I try not to repeat. Here's a good one. Somebody mentioned to me recently, I was talking to about this, and they said that they did that, and the goal was to not repeat any of their previous gratefuls. I repeat mine sometimes, not every day, but like one from last week I may use again this week. So I am working on not repeating. It makes you think outside the box a little bit more. The other thing that I like to write down is one thing that will make tomorrow great, because that just pre-frames you and prepares you for a great tomorrow in advance, right? So those are like the 2 biggest things. And attitude, right? Just in a general, a positive outlook on things. Not everything is always positive all the time, every day, always, but you can at least have somewhat of a positive outlook on things. Hey, Yuri. With that said, on the physical aspect, the physical side of things, number 1 is sleep. Those of you who know me know that I'm not a big, I don't sleep a lot, but I do know the benefits of it, as you know that I've done all this stuff, all this work on optimizing the quality of the sleep I get and everything else. But sleep is a big one. And these aren't going to be, the best part about these physical things, the physical health, is it's not like I don't have a special diet, I don't have a special anything. Quality sleep, drink a lot of water. I eat almost no sugar. I do go on binges every once in a while, but most of the time I eat no sugar. And one of the biggest things that I just learned about recently that I hadn't thought of before were refined oils, like sunflower oil and things like that. If it's not like olive oil, like real oil that was around hundreds of years ago, then I don't want to be putting it in my body. Primarily, that's processed foods. I eat hardly any processed foods, except when I eat pizza occasionally. So, yeah. Sleep, water, no sugar, or little sugar, and very, very almost zero processed foods. There's the key right there. If it has more than here's a good, if you want to try this, if it has more than 1 ingredient, then don't eat it. That's a little extreme, but there are people that do that. For example, eggs, that's 1 ingredient. Meat, that's 1 ingredient. A carrot, that's 1 ingredient. So play around with that. The biggest thing I've noticed is that people overcomplicate things. And the more you overcomplicate it, the harder it is to do. And the harder it is to do, the less you will do it, and the less consistent you'll be with doing it. And then it just won't happen. And then it'll be just another thing that was too difficult to do or you didn't have time to do. So with that said, this is going to be really short tonight, about 10 minutes in right now. Quick recap. Easy things to do mentally and physically for your health. In general, have a positive outlook on things. Don't bury your head in the sand and say that everything is all rosy all the time, but you can have a fairly positive outlook on most things. Be grateful. If you can't do 3 things you're grateful for every day, do 1 thing. And it's even better if you have somebody you can tell that to, because then you can have a conversation. Things with others are always more powerful than alone. That's a proven fact by science, and I'll get into that in another episode. Also doing one thing that will make tomorrow great, to pre-frame that day to be great. And as far as nutrition goes and physical health, sleep consistency, quality of sleep, dialing that in. Drink water. You don't need a bunch of other like energy drinks and all this other stuff. They're just not necessary. You need water. Water's free too. Just make sure it's good water, right? Good quality water from somewhere. And I'll get into maybe filters and things like that in another episode. But almost no sugar. Try to stay away from sugar. And refined oils or processed foods. Especially stay away from those. I heard a podcast recently by a guy named Ben Greenfield, and he's like a super smart dude, and he was talking about if somebody was to give him a big thing of cotton candy or some processed foods with oils, with these unnatural oils in them, what would he eat? He'd eat the sugar first, because he would process that quicker, metabolize that quicker in his body. And that's when I realized that for myself, when I eat a lot of sugar, it doesn't bother me. And I never realized why that was. Majority of the time when I eat a lot of sugar, it's not too big of a deal. And I think it's just because I burn it off quicker than if I eat a crappy giant pile of processed food. So with that said, tonight is a little slower. I got some things going. That brain wasn't functioning, but that's fine. Good ones and bad ones. Keep coming back. They're going to get better and better. And you will keep learning more and more the more you come and listen and ask questions. Post in here if you want to hear anything else. If you have any ideas on, or people I should interview. I'm going to start doing interviews too. So with that said, have an amazing day, because it's better than the alternative.